All right. Welcome to Two Fat Dads. How you doing,
Hello.
Steve?
Very good. How are you, Tony?
Good. We're solo, kind of, in a weird way. Solo. What would you say? It's just us.
Yeah, it's just the dynamic duo, right?
We've been abandoned. So far, no one has said they want to come on. We're
I've
done.
asked I've asked three people who I think would be very interesting, and they've all said that they'll think about it.
You know what that means, right?
Yeah, I do know exactly what that means.
Politely saying no. Oh boy. It's been an
One thing
interesting, huh?
I was gonna say one thing might be to start because we've kind of been focused on our friend group and stuff, and that's cool, but maybe it might be time to start thinking of because I legit did not think we would get 15 views per episode.
Yeah.
And between what we get on YouTube and our downloads, we get over 100 every episode now.
I know nothing about the like audio podcast side.
Our most popular one so far was Boys Night.
That makes
Twice
sense.
as many downloads as the next most downloaded episode.
Are you titling all the podcast episodes yourself?
If I don't like the one you put on, I do.
Okay.
Well, we talked before we got on, and just there's several things that are happening,
Oh, so many things.
and I am going to shut my air conditioner. I forget to do this every time. Give me a second.
Okay, no worries. I'm going to take this time to say we appreciate everyone who's listening. Like Steve mentioned, it is surprising. We're grateful. It's humbling. So I'm kind of the YouTube side. Steve is kind of the podcast side. So I always say, please like and subscribe and leave a comment. We love it. And our Two Fat Dads Facebook page is up to like almost 150 people.
That is really, again, when you've been talking about doing this for forever, and one of the reasons I just did not think people would be interested.
See, since we separated, I became extremely popular.
Well, I have a friend, the dog sitting behind me.
Oh,
He
I just
watches.
realized you were the anchor that was keeping me down.
Oh, totally. I mean, that's that, there's no way one can be friends with me and have their social status rise. That is just not possible.
It's just that part of it is, I mean, you already know this. I'm involved in several singles groups on Facebook.
Sure.
I am doing, just as a bit of news, right? I'm doing my first ever singles conference this September. It's in Nauvoo. It's called the Nauvoo Mega Conference. I don't know what makes it mega.
What do they do?
Maybe they meant MAGA. MAGA. Am I going to a MAGA event?
If you go, I think you'll know almost immediately.
I think I will.
So what seriously, what do you do at a youth at a not a youth, but a single adult conference?
Right. So when I actually started going to singles events, it was through this Facebook group called I won't even get it right, like Roaming Latter-day Saints or Roaming Singles or whatever it's called. And actually I have to look because it makes me upset that I don't know. Roaming Latter-day Saint Singles.
Oh,
okay. So it's a group on Facebook that it's primarily east of the Mississippi, and just about every month someone will organize an event, and a lot of times it has to do with just renting a house in a nice location and people just traveling to go there and hang out, and it's really relaxed. It's really cool. But a conference is definitely more rigid. That's
okay.
where you're going to have an agenda, you're going to have speakers. Generally they get a couple of like a literal couple to come speak to us and tell us why we're single and why we're so bad at it, and this is what we have to do to be like them and be happy and married. It's wonderful. It's amazing. There's temple trips involved, there's activities, and there's a dance, but the thing is, I can tolerate some of the workshops, but
Right.
I hate the meet and greets, the meet and mingles, these stupid things they do. I can't stand them. I don't want to do
Oh,
them.
okay.
That's
So
fine.
you don't do them? I mean, I guess.
I mean, this is gonna be my first conference. I mean, I've gone to some that are kind of like a conference, but not really, and it's fine. I'm more looking forward to Nauvoo because I've never been to Nauvoo.
Well, I mean, Nauvoo. Okay, I haven't been to Nauvoo in several years.
Because you got banned.
I'm sorry.
Because you got banned.
Well, I think that like most people, you know, a little bit of Steve is terrific, but too much of Steve and you can OD. No, it's just, you know, I just haven't been in a long time. We really ought to take the kids and go. We're not that far away from it, but if you enjoy church history,
I do.
then Nauvoo is like catnip,
Perfect.
you know.
I like history, period. I'm a history buff. I just can't remember names and dates. So, but it doesn't mean that I'm not completely interested. I watch a lot of documentaries. That's kind of mainly what I'm into.
I was thinking that I'm sorry, I'm misspeaking on that. What I've been thinking is that the church has purchased a lot of, I don't know.
Scammer. Are you up to date on your auto warranty? Because they'll call you if your warranty is lapsed.
I literally do not know what that was. That was not a ringtone.
Oh, was it an Amber Alert? Well, if it was an Amber Alert, I would have gotten one.
Yeah. Okay. But no, the church has purchased a lot of, as I understand it, extra stuff around that area.
Okay.
You know,
I have no reference at this point.
So, and of course, to give you a reference, the last time I went, there wasn't a temple there.
Oh, well, yeah. Okay.
You know, I mean, it's been a while. You know, I actually thought I enjoyed and was just a little bit more interested in the Community of Christ stuff, just because it was different than what I was familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the Community of Christ, if you go to Kirtland, they'll tell you.
I thought that was more Kirtland.
Well, there's a little bit at Nauvoo, and they'll tell you that 95% of, at least, of their tourists are Mormon or from the Utah church.
Sure.
So, you know, for the most part, they seem to be pretty open to, you know, us coming over. I guess I don't know if we really had a debate about this, but I wanted to address some news that came out today.
Oh, sure.
Are you up to that?
Yeah, I'm up to it. I think for our listeners, we decided to stay away from some tricky subjects, you know. But really, if this was a true boys' night, anything goes.
Anything goes.
Anything goes. And so I think because there's so many things happening, so many things I've wanted to talk about, I think it's just time, and just to be respectful to, you know, we have an opinion, and not even that you and I are going to match, you know, in our opinions, but just we're probably going to differ from a lot of opinions out there.
Well, that's possible. And I mean, if I do think that there's a lot of just people wanting to sit in an echo chamber and just hear people who agree with them. And that's regardless of what side they are on any particular issue.
So my transition into some of these Facebook groups have been kind of shocking, though. I mean, it really surprises me sometimes, the stuff that ends up on there.
Okay.
The opinions that end up on there. I mean, sometimes I like I said, I joked in one of the earlier episodes that I was going to lose like 28% of my friends and family and whoever else. That's fine. Because, you know, like, I do have strong opinions about things, and there's been a lot of things going on, and I'm assuming that you're going to mention Alex Jones.
Yes, we can start with Alex Jones.
Oh, well, you wanted to start. I got sent an article today. It showed up on the AP.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I wanted. I wanted to start with that.
And that's fine. And the person that sent it to me wanted me to be really interested in this article and to be compared with the Catholic Church and how are we any better than the Catholic Church?
It's a fair question.
It's a fair question. And I'm like, there's going to be this in any religion. There's going to be this in any part of our society. And at this point, to be honest, I'm jaded to all this stuff, not even with everywhere that it exists, but specifically in the church. I have experienced things in the church that I do not agree with and that I do not think we do a good job at addressing abuse.
I think, yeah, do you mind if I go ahead and just kind of outline?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so the AP article comes out, and I believe this just was released today. So I think we should release this episode today.
Okay.
So we can be timely on that. But essentially, it started with a story of a young lady, not a young lady, a little girl, a 5-year-old girl who was being raped by her father, and he went in and told. I'm sorry.
In New Zealand, I believe.
In New Zealand, yes. And he went in and he talked to the bishop, and the bishop called this hotline that the church has, and talked to some lawyers, and the lawyers basically said, "You're not legally required to report it." And so he didn't. And so the dad continued to rape his daughter for 7 years, recorded it, ended up getting busted. Distributed it, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Ended up getting busted by their Homeland Security. And now he was arrested, I believe it said in 2017. And so it's 2022. So I'm not sure why this story comes out 5 years later. But I don't know. I don't really talk a lot about what I do beyond just very general statements about being a therapist. But my day job is I work with children who are in the foster care system here in Indiana. And so my children have all been physically, sexually abused, or
not your personal children, just to clarify.
No. Yes, not my personal children. No, you're right. I'm sorry. That's a really common thing I do. And in fact, one time I even told a parent, we were talking about, it was a foster parent, and I said, yeah, I said one of my kids, they got in trouble for touching their sister, and she thought I meant like my child.
Right.
And I was like, no.
Whoa, no.
That's this. Yeah, no, but I'm talking about the kids that I work with.
This is not going to be a light and fluffy episode.
Yeah, and trigger warnings, because we are going to talk about abuse, and we're not going to go into anything graphic, but I think that we have to start having, okay, this gets released, this gets out there, and the rabble on Facebook and Twitter and all the they start complaining about it, and they say how bad the church is, and this is why I left, and this is why I would never belong to a church. That's all fine, but if we're not going to start having faithful members talking about this, and God help us if we ever got the leadership to address it, this is so bad. And the thing is, okay, so I'm going to tell a couple of things. All right. So again, all of the kids that I work with have all been abused in some way. I'd say about half of them have been sexually abused. And it's terrible. I mean, I could tell you stories that, and I would not, but I could tell you stories that would make it difficult to eat or sleep.
Can I stop you and just ask a very personal question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Have there been things that you've experienced that have made you very emotional?
You mean with clients? Oh yeah. The first time I ever sat with a little girl and her mom, the little girl had been sexually abused by her father. This is actually during my internship. So this was well over 20 years ago. And I sat with her and her mom, and we cried together. I mean, I wasn't weeping,
right.
But I mean, I was teary-eyed as we were discussing this, and that changed a lot of the ways that that one young lady, and again, she was I don't remember how old she was exactly, but she was not, I say young lady, and I know that I use these terms and they, but this girl was definitely younger than 12. And, it just brought that home in a way that I just was not, I had thought about it theoretically. Of course, we discussed it in classes,
Right.
but to bring it home like that.
I
Please.
I'm not going to change the subject. We'll eventually probably get into this, but the Uvalde school shooting.
Yeah.
How many school shootings have we had? How many mass shootings have we had?
Right.
I mean, but there was something about that particular incident, and it had everything to do with they were the same age as my youngest daughter.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know, and I feel insensitive about it. I wasn't extremely insensitive. Of course, I felt for anybody who was in those situations, but in particular, this one really, like, I cried about it, which I had not done before with any other situation or shooting.
I will say that as we're doing this, this is pretty emotional and pretty heavy topics, and there is going to be some bounce back and forth. And
well, there's not a lot of room for humor right now.
No, there's not. But I had the same reaction with Sandy Hook. I was
right.
at it's just what you remember. I was at a company bowling party. They had closed our office down early that day, and we went bowling, and I was so excited because there was going to be tons of food, and I hate bowling, but I was still going to sit and watch other people bowl and just hang out and laugh and stuff and not have to work. And on the way there, it came out over the radio, the Sandy Hook thing, and it was like somebody, it was beyond a gut punch.
Yeah, how can you go have fun after that?
Which is why I found so much joy in Alex Jones.
There's a lot of joy
this
there, yeah.
week.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, if somebody really wants to defend Alex Jones, I don't know that I particularly want them to watch what I'm doing.
It's fine, right? That's a good filter at this point.
I mean, because Alex Jones isn't a conservative. He's just fascist,
a moron,
manipulative. Yeah. And he did admit on the stand that he knew that Sandy Hook did happen.
Well, what was great was, they're calling it an accident.
Oh, I was totally going to say that. Yes.
Yeah. It's a quote unquote accident that his lawyers sent the, prosecutors all of his texts for like 2 years.
Yep.
And I doubt that was an accident.
Yeah. How would you even be able to accidentally do that? No. Right.
I mean, I wish we could have had V on tonight. She's extremely busy. But yeah.
Well, we'll have her on at some point, in a couple weeks, and we'll ask her about Alex Jones in particular.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So going back to
yeah.
I'm sorry, going back to the church. So, so here's a confession. When my son came out as gay, I asked the stake president at the time if we could petition Salt Lake City to not change any doctrine, but to simply state that a person who was gay and in a legal marriage was not violating the law of chastity.
Okay.
The same way as a person who's a member of the church who married a non-member would not be breaking the law of chastity.
Correct.
And I was told no, that they were not going to petition that the brethren were already thinking about things and they essentially didn't need my input. So when we had the time with Vay on and you were talking and Vay was talking and Bobby was talking, you were all talking about your rebound marriages.
Yeah.
And by the way, I have no judgment on that at all. But here's my situation with the church in this is that, as a heterosexual, you can get married and get divorced.
Oh, you're hetero?
And then what? Oh, okay. But you can get married and get divorced, and then you can get into kind of a quickie marriage that's like a really bad decision and kind of done more off of impulse and because you feel bad and you're horny. And then that marriage doesn't last very long and you can get divorced and there are no consequences. As far as like the church, as far as your church membership,
like a loophole, you would consider a loophole.
I would definitely consider that a loophole. But if my son were to say, oh my gosh, I've met this man and I just want to be with him for the rest of my life and I want to commit my life to him, that gets you excommunicated. And so once that happened, I started paying what I consider to be a modified full tithe.
Oh, wow.
Which is essentially I paid the church the smallest amount that I feel that I can pay and still call myself a full tithe payer. And then I give other money to other organizations and people.
Right. Of your choosing.
And every time I kind of feel guilty about that because of course tithing's supposed to be, I've been raised
literally hear it in your voice.
Yeah. I mean, you're supposed to pay a full tithe. And then this happens. And I remember when the Catholic priest scandal really hit the fan, and a guy went on CNN, and he was a very famous Catholic. I don't know who he was, but he was like a very well-known Catholic, just a guy, not like a priest.
Yeah.
And he said, he goes, I am really struggling with continuing to contribute to an organization that is apparently using my tithing money. I don't remember if he called it tithing, but my tithing money to pay off victims that they allowed to be sexually abused.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I guess I never wrapped my head around
I have
that.
thought, here I am dedicating my life. I could make more money not working because these kids have no money. What we get paid is the lowest possible amount you can get paid we're hourly contracted with the state, and the state gives us the lowest amount they can justifiably give us, essentially. And I could make much more money doing a lot of other things.
Sure.
But I've dedicated my life, and I'm able to do that. My wife has a good income. I'm able to do that. I've dedicated my life to helping kids overcome abuse. And now I feel like we have the church supporting the abuse.
It's a very fair argument. Very fair. Do you remember why we got windows in all of our classrooms?
I do.
Pretty sure that was church wide, right?
Yes.
I mean, here's the thing. Is it really that surprising that and okay, let me take a minute here to say that for a lot of people right now, it'd be very shocking to say anything negative or derogatory or have an opinion against the church. Remember when we joked about how when I first met you and I thought that you were like an apostate?
Yes.
Just because you had an opinion. And I think what I had to learn is it is okay to have an opinion against what is happening from Salt Lake.
The thing is that it sucks. I'd much rather be able to focus on, hey, where's the new music handbook? The new music.
Oh, sure. And I think a lot of people live in that world, though. Right? Don't you think? I think a lot of people live in that world and they don't even take the time to even talk about these things when they really should deserve.
Well, it's very painful.
Right. We kind of joke a little bit about the Mormon bubble. It's real. It's 100% real. People want to live in there and they want to put on their rose-colored glasses and say, you know what? Child soldiers don't exist in Africa. That's not even possible. Right? There's no way that they get, little 7-8-year-old kids hooked on heroin to go out and fight wars for themselves or for whatever warmonger is currently, in power. It does happen. Bad, terrible, awful things happen in the world, and including our church.
Right.
And so you're right. The question is how are we handling these things? And usually most of the time we suck at it. And the reason why we suck at it is because we put certain people, white or men, in positions where they're just not trained to really handle some of these really complex and difficult situations.
I think that that point you're making cannot be overstated.
Let me take a second real quick to add to it, because I worked at the University of Notre Dame, right? I don't know if every priest has got like a master's or a doctorate, but all of these priests did.
Right.
Okay. And not even that they were teaching or professors, they were just there with the students and dealing with the spirituality of the students and guiding them, right? But for a lot of Catholic priests, they have a ton of training, as far as I know, right? Vastly different from your regular Mormon bishop. Your regular Mormon bishop works a 40-hour job and is
Right.
asked to volunteer their time to go and lead the flock of sometimes a ward that with got 300 people in it, 400 people in it. It's a huge task. And anyone who doesn't understand, who's on the outside and doesn't understand what we're talking about, it's a lot to wrap your mind around.
Well, and I'm sure that there are people who want to be bishop, but nobody asks for it.
Mm-mm.
You know, you're not,
No.
if I said to you, hey, Tony, I'm going to really strategize so that I can become bishop, that what would one do to make that happen?
First of all, go to Facebook, unfriend Steve.
Because that would be number one.
First thing I do. But but at the same time, what's interesting is, have you and I not had opinions about what the bishop should do in certain situations?
Sure.
I mean, so
here I want to tell my experience with the church hotline.
Oh, interesting.
I've never called the church hotline. I'm obviously never been bishop, and I don't think there's a lot of danger in that happening. But
especially with the podcast.
Yes, the podcast was designed, I thought, to make us in for general authority.
We should just change it to the anti-bishop podcast or something. I don't know.
But so I had a bishop. I'm not even going to say where we were living. I had a bishop, and he came to me and said, well, okay, I had come to him and asked him about one of the boys in our ward who were his family was not active. And I said his brother abused him, like his older brother, who was an adult. This kid was 13 or 14, really, really pummeled him. And like I said, the brother was an adult, and he had bruises all over his face. And so I went to the bishop and I said, you need to talk to him, and we need to call DCS.
Yeah.
And so he called the hotline, not the DCS. Now in Indiana, it's DCS. Other places, it's CPS. We all know what we're talking about.
Sure.
Family and Child
Protective Services.
Yes. And he called the church hotline, and he came back to me. Yeah.
I am trying to inject a little bit of humor in this,
Go ahead.
A little bit. Whenever my daughters hit me, which they do, I always scream Adult Protective Services.
And I bet they do exactly as much as real Adult Protective Services.
No, they just say, there's no
nothing.
such thing. You just have to call 911 as they continue to hit me.
Well, there is an Adult Protective Services, and they do nothing.
Gotcha.
That's from many years of trying to get them to do anything. Okay, so he called the church hotline. The church hotline told him, hey, if there's a guy who's a therapist who knows about this, have him call DCS. Well, I've made hundreds of DCS reports. I made one yesterday.
Hey, it's Steve again.
So I've made many, many, many DCS reports. I don't mind. And so when he told me, I went, okay. So him and I worked out a little thing.
Okay.
That when something happened that needed to be reported, he would have the family tell me about it. And then I would call DCS and keep him out of that. Now that worked in that I made 4 DCS reports over a period of time.
Mm-hmm.
But that is not a great way to handle that situation.
No.
It's if you have to maneuver around the church and what they're trying to do the right thing, that's a problem.
All right. So what is abuse? What is abuse? It's such a general term.
Okay.
Now we do have, quote unquote training. You've gone through the youth protective training. right?
Yes.
And they outline abuse, right?
Yeah, I don't even know that. I mean, I don't. Boy, how
I mean,
would I define?
they even mention bullying as abuse,
Sure.
you know.
So I guess the first thing to know is that not all abuse is reportable.
That's kind of what I'm getting at.
Okay.
So my point is, even though we started with a story that was not only graphic, but it's sad and it's extreme, right? I feel like this is just an opinion, and that I feel like I have no data. I feel like when we talk about abuse, especially within the church, what we care about the most is if there is a man in a family that is physically abusing his family. And that seems the only abuse that we really care about.
Or sexually abusing them.
Or sexually, yes. But in
Yeah.
my mind, I can't even go there because it's just such a hard subject. But yes.
Yes, I think that is true. When we talk about, and I'll tell you, I'll give you a really quick example. I'd gone out to the hall, I don't know, for something, and I was standing at the doorway to go back into the chapel when somebody was saying the opening prayer,
Mhm.
and I'm not always great about keeping my eyes closed, and so I was kind of looking
Oh.
around,
That means the prayer didn't come true.
and this mom was sitting next to her daughter, who was probably 13-ish, and the daughter was kind of looking around, which I was also doing, and the mother not, she taps her on her knee and points, get your head down.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's terrible. You're not going to give your kid enough agency to decide whether or not to bow their head.
13
At 13. I mean,
wow.
I thought that was really problematic, but you're right. If I'd gone to the bishop and said, Bishop,
sure,
this is what I just saw, he wouldn't.
No, it wouldn't have been anything. So I just find it an interesting subject because of where we're gonna put the different levels of abuse, what we're gonna consider what is actually abuse or what's not. Yeah, I would consider there's a lot. I think emotional abuses should be counted and should be considered. Verbal emotional abuse, neglect is something that I would consider as abuse.
Oh yeah.
So, but again, what at what extent? Because emotional and verbal abuse is going to be in every marriage, right? Every relationship.
I mean, if you're going to say that anytime something mean is said, yeah.
I mean, so anyways, it's a really tricky subject. But yet, I mean, what's the solution? I've often felt like the solution is to call somebody like yourself into a ward calling and make a ward calling where you would handle, like, if the bishop found out about something that was happening, all of a sudden you'd be brought into the situation.
I had not ever thought about that. One of the things I have thought is if we made bishops a co-bishop position with the husband and the wife,
which it should almost be that way, but yes, officially that'd be great.
So that the bishop's wife would, I'm not even arguing that women would do a better job of dealing with abuse, but I think that when you're a bishop and you are isolated in terms of, because bishops can't go to bishopric meeting and say, oh yes, I just found out that this guy is, touching his little girl.
Mm-hmm.
So, if he could talk to his wife about it, which he obviously should not be otherwise, that would give a tremendous amount of just talking off. I mean, how many times do we do that with each other where, we just talk off something and we make a much better decision?
Oh, all the time. You got to hear yourself think.
And I have to tell you that I do not understand after what happened with the Catholic Church, I do not understand anyone, but especially a religion, and especially a major religion with billions of dollars, saying we're not going to report this abuse. I cannot fathom where that comes from.
I don't know either. That's the number one question. When that article was sent to me, that was the number one question. Like, what's the point? And I have no idea. Why do we have a PR department?
Well, and that's where you get into, like, if you have a frustration with the church, are you having frustration with the doctrine?
No.
Or is this the bureaucracy?
The bureaucracy, the administration, for sure.
And for sure. I mean, if you have an organization, you're going to have bureaucracy. You can't get away from it.
Right.
But sometimes, and I really think this is an example of that, where the bureaucracy is designed to protect the institution, but it ends up cannibalizing it instead.
Correct.
I mean,
sad. So to transition a little bit, this is such a depressing subject.
Yes.
Alex Jones, and you mentioned, I started thinking about it when you mentioned, Bishop and his wife, being able to talk. I don't know if he's married or not, but I mean, he does his podcast, he does his show, whatever it is, and then he possibly goes home to her wife, and is she just thinking like, what on earth are you saying? Or is she like, oh, good job today, honey, you were great? That's obviously more likely the story.
Well, okay, so let's talk then about January 6th.
I'd love to.
I actually think January 6th is a really good tie-in to Alex Jones.
It is.
Because I called my mother, who is such a big Trump supporter that she has a picture of Donald Trump on the wall of family pictures.
It's a life-size cutout, like a big fat head.
I don't think it's that big, but like I said, where she has all her family pictures, one of those pictures is Donald Trump. And I
don't think we've seen this kind of worship since like a Reagan
and Kennedy,
Reagan, Kennedy. Yeah, sure.
And I don't, I understand why people voted for Trump. I really do.
I do too. Honestly, I do too.
When I hear people say that, oh, no member of the church would have voted for Trump, that's a nonsensical statement. In fact, President Oaks said in the general conference right before the election that two people might have very different issues that they vote for.
Oh, you mentioned this, yeah.
And based on the issue that you find most important, let's just use this example, you might have voted for Joe Biden. And based on the issue that I think was the most important, I might have voted for Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And he said, that is fine.
I think that's fine too. Yeah.
So
I think the problem that we've always talked about is when you're entrenched, when you say, I am conservative, I am conservative. And then you're like, you have to support whoever they throw up.
And you do see this more with conservatives because liberals tend to hate their leaders. I mean, okay, because here's the thing about liberals. I mean,
Biden's getting a lot of.
This is not going to be a compliment. If somebody thinks that we're going to come on here and we're going to crap all over, the conservatives, and we're going to leave the liberals alone, that's not what you're going to find. Here's the deal with liberals. Liberals are so guilty of having the ideal, the perfect, and having that as a goal. And so anyone who compromises or doesn't gain the ideal, they immediately call them a sellout and they don't want anything to do with them. So if Joe Biden had come in and on day one, he'd gotten the Green New Deal passed and, whenever these,
yes,
minimum wage up to $15 and all these different things, none of which even had a chance, then they would like him. Right. They would not adore him. They would like him.
Right.
So you're not going to see that kind of worship from the left because Joe Biden, they think he's a sellout. And they basically think everybody except Bernie Sanders is a sellout.
I think there's just a lot of intellectual hubris in the liberal left. I think
there is something about being, because I'm not a Democrat or Republican. But I spend more time on liberal Democratic groups and pages on Facebook and such. And I mean, they are so condescending about, I mean, is grass green, and they're, they're,
I mean, have you seen some of I forgot the dude's name, but there's tons of shorts on YouTube or the Facebook Reels, whatever they're called, and he's going around trying to define and get people to define what a woman is.
Right.
And when you get people from the far left to try to answer that question, it's almost absurdity, to get them to actually buckle down and say it, and then he'll transition and say, well, define what a cat is. And they're like, they can define what a cat, but they refuse to define what a woman is.
Well, and I think that again, when you talk about the trans issue, the first thing I note is that the people who have the most problem with trans people don't actually know anyone who's trans.
I have to stop you and tell you about my dream. I have to.
Okay.
I totally forgot to tell you beforehand to ask me about my dream, but I started dreaming that I was having sex with a transgender woman. Okay.
So for those who are unclear, a transgender woman has a penis.
Well, this one did not.
Oh, so this one had gone through surgery. They had a penis at one point and they'd gone through surgery.
Okay. So now I'm getting embarrassed that I don't know the correct term.
Oh, who cares?
Okay. So anyways, but then I realized very quickly that I'm not myself. I am in fact Dave Chappelle. Who has a lot of he's anti or just jokes or whatever you want to call it. Some of it's kind of, really disappoints me sometimes.
Some of it pushes the line, yes.
But obviously I'm not going to go into detail, but first of all, I rarely remember my dreams. They're rarely vivid, but this one was very vivid. I don't know what it means. What does it mean, Steve?
Well, I mean, I would, okay. So if you're going to, I don't really think sex in a dream is about sex in a dream. I think sex in a dream is more about control, and it's about, where you feel like your life is at, those kind of things.
My life is out of control.
That makes a lot more sense to me. I actually think the other things are about sex that aren't sexual. But anyway, so with the trans, this is a great point. So I said on Reddit, we were talking about abortion and Roe v. Wade, and I said, I'm just going to say that I think that abortion is really more of a women's issue.
100%.
Like, as a man, I don't really feel like I can tell women.
That video that you posted was fantastic.
And so a person said, "You're being so transphobic."
What?
And I typed back and I said, "Hey, send me a private message and tell me how I'm being transphobic, because I don't know what you're talking about."
Okay.
And they started yelling at me publicly, and they said, and I said, okay, this is why people hate liberals. Because if I said something transphobic, tell me what I said, and then I can decide how to address it. Because here's what they're saying. They're saying that there are trans men, meaning men with a uterus, who have not transitioned, who can get pregnant.
Okay.
And, this is where, I mean, sometimes I feel that the right is purposely obtuse on this issue. As much as the left is purposely vague, because sex and gender aren't the same thing, and we can definitely tell you what a female is. I don't remember what the chromosomes are, but they're the X whatever's chromosomes is female.
Basically what you're saying, if someone dug up a body 100 years from now, they can tell if it's man or woman, no matter what they had decided to do before they died.
Right. And gender is all about how you express yourself. It's really not the big deal everybody makes it out to be, unless people make a big deal about it.
So, I mean, if we're talking about like what you and I are politically, or how we identify, it's with libertarianism, because it's a pretty simple concept. You have all the liberties to go out and find happiness. Go out and find your happiness, whatever it is. Go find out what makes you happy and do it. As long as you're not hurting yourself or others, why does it matter?
Well, I mean, I certainly agree with that. I also agree that if we decided to end certain institutions and rebuild them, that wouldn't be the worst thing.
It would not. Well, you can't say it though. You can't say it because not only will you go into Facebook jail, but we'll go into YouTube jail.
That's what I just said.
No,
I'm not saying anything more than that.
No, I know.
Okay.
So, okay, go ahead.
Well,
I was watching Infinity Wars.
okay.
And Thanos, his whole thing was to save the universe. You have to eliminate half of it because we're overpopulated. We're taking, but then he realized, no, I made a mistake. I have to destroy everybody and restart.
That's what God did after the ark, right? I mean, I'm not trying to be flippant. I'm saying that's what he did.
Well, yeah. I mean, my daughters and I have been talking. We talked about, and we don't have to go into this subject because it's so long, but we talked about the 1921 Tulsa massacre. Okay, we talked about racism. I didn't really hold back, but I wasn't obviously too graphic, but said this is what happened. And they were really surprised. They were saddened and surprised. It was a real gauge for me. I was not necessarily surprised by the story. It wasn't shocking to me because I had just learned about it this week. That's what I should have said that. And really, it's only been out, the documentary's only been out for like a year because we're just kind of now putting it out there.
Right.
What happened. So you and I watching a documentary about what happened, we wouldn't be like shocked. We'd be saddened, we'd be upset, but we're not shocked.
Right.
My daughters were shocked.
Well, I remember when my daughter found out we had never had a woman who was president.
Oh.
And she was like, what? How's that even possible? She was like 12.
Right.
And we're like, well, yeah.
The youth are wonderful. They really are.
So I want to kind of recap just a little bit. Alex Jones, completely absurd. Oh, I do want to finish this point with the January 6th thing and Alex Jones.
Oh yeah, sure.
Just that, for a certain segment of the, and I don't know what the percentage is, it's not high, 25% less, they just really seem to be susceptible to big conspiracy theories.
Oh my gosh, dude. But yet
my mother,
whom
I love, believes the earth is flat, Tony.
What is that? I mean, at a certain point, are we talking about a personality disorder?
Well, in my mom's case, we are.
Okay.
But I don't know about everybody.
A lot of these people, though, I would consider intelligent people. They're not really dumb per se.
Right.
But as they talk about their theories, I'm like, you are a moron.
Well, they just, there is something about, and it goes back to what Jacob said in, that the whole idea of looking beyond the mark, that people get bored with simple things.
That's all it is. Like
they think there must be something really complex. I mean, it's come out in the January 6th hearings that basically even Trump knew he actually lost.
Sure.
And that all of this was kind of for show, I guess. And
first of all,
to try to overthrow a validly government.
If you were going to do that, this is the first. Okay. If you were going to actually do that, would you not try to conceal your identity? I mean, isn't that the first thing that you do?
That's what I would do.
But instead, what did a lot of people do?
Right.
Nothing.
They put it on Facebook.
Or they put buffalo heads on their to stand out.
Or they dressed up like Captain Moroni. Gosh.
That's not true, is it?
No, there was a guy dressed up like Captain Moroni. They kept calling him a Viking because the news AP didn't know who Captain Moroni was.
So he's thinking that he's doing the same thing he did with the banner or whatever.
Yes.
Oh, geez, Steve, I don't know anymore. When someone, you've ran into people who, well, obviously you just mentioned your mother, but I mean, have you had, I've had situations where I've had coworkers and they're kind of becoming friends, and then they start talking conspiracy theories, and I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa.
Well,
I need to back off really quickly here.
typically, I don't think conspiracy theories are all that big a deal. I mean, if somebody thinks that lizard men are running the country, who cares? I mean, really,
Depends. We really have to define the conspiracy theory. Okay. Because remember when like someone, I'm going to specifically mention like Rosie O'Donnell, and she said, 9/11, all these conspiracies that
well,
still can't melt.
yeah,
Right.
which of course it can.
How do you, yeah. So when they're actually arguing against proven science, then
Right.
I might. So it does depend. Like if you want to believe in Bigfoot, by all means,
Right.
Aliens. That's not gonna bother me. Whatever it is.
And honestly, even the flat earth thing, like my
'cause
mom
those
believing,
subjects can be fun to talk about. How did the pyramids get built? That's a
well,
fun subject.
like for instance, my mom thinks that the dinosaurs were on the ark, but dinosaur bones were planted by Satan to
Yes.
fool people. And yet dinosaurs were on the ark. I mean, that kind of stuff, who cares?
Who cares? But I did have a situation where that was taught to my children in church, and I corrected that immediately.
That's good. You needed to. I remember that. I remember that very well. Who did that?
Thank you. So I told that story to Andy last weekend, and he had never heard that conspiracy before, ever.
Oh, really? Because that goes back to Cleon Skousen.
Oh man. I mean, it's just interesting that conspiracies are everywhere, but the details about January 6th and everything that's coming out, I mean, to me, it's not like shocking. Again, it's not shocking. It's not this huge surprise. It's just like, yeah, I mean, why is this surprising everyone that Trump either said this or did this, trying to take control of the limo or car he was in or whatever, take me to the Capitol, and they wouldn't. And then, it just, politically, I was going to mention this earlier. Have you noticed that, and I believe this has been going on for a long time, but if you're just even like a low level politician and you're campaigning, you are somehow dubbed the MAGA candidate. Like you're Trump approved.
My little girl here is going crazy. She wants that microphone so bad. Yes, Ella. She wants the microphone, but she also wants to get down. Yes. Well, they were talking about, I'm sorry, now I'm going to go back to what you just said, but they were talking about how there's a bed behind me, and I just said,
no, you just tossed that dog down the stairs.
Just throw her. But they were talking about how whether or not they were Trump candidates.
Like true Trump candidates.
Like true Trump
candidates. To prove their loyalty, they have to, oh my, because there's
that's what I was talking about.
Candidates that are going against Republicans and like, you're not a true Republican.
Right.
I was loyal to President Trump through everything.
But that's what I was talking about when I said that liberals and Democrats, they don't like their leaders. Republicans, conservatives, they are, and this has always been this way, they're very loyal to, well, they're loyal to who they're loyal to. They're still loyal to Ronald Reagan.
Sure. I mean,
and in this case, Donald Trump fit whatever criteria they felt that they needed, and they were very loyal to Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And Mitt Romney in 2016, they didn't care for him.
No.
So they begrudgingly voted for him. I'm sure a lot of people secretly didn't vote for him. And because I'll say this, if you get a conservative candidate, now, the Republican Party is at a tough place, and Roe v. Wade, we just had the Kansas election 2 days ago or something like that, where they set in the most conservative state in the union, just about, the 70% voted to keep Roe v. Wade. Voted to keep abortion legal. So, that's going to skew things. But as a rule, if you get a conservative candidate that the Republicans really like, it's very difficult to beat that guy.
It's going to be such a huge hot button topic now.
Yeah.
Massive.
And,
we've decided not to talk about it much, right? We're two dudes and we don't really want to talk about Roe v. Wade, but
right.
We both have daughters.
Right.
Well,
Well, and I live in Indiana, and you know, that 10-year-old girl from Ohio
Oh my gosh.
who gets raped,
And
and
then of course
then
there's people who are saying it's you know, like
it
the
was
Alex
totally made up.
Joneses that are going to say, oh, it's a conspiracy. It's not true. It never happened.
And because I don't think people are voting like, hey, yes, we want to have, you know, women have unfettered abortions all the time. Keep having them, keep having them. But I think that they say to themselves, oh my gosh, because I even said to my wife, I go, well, what happens if our daughter, we live in Indiana, and the Indiana is going to pass a very restrictive abortion bill. And I said, what if our daughter got raped? And, you know, one of the problems with the exception for rapes is that, like for instance, in Indiana, they have to tell within the first 8 weeks of pregnancy. Well, a lot of times women don't know if they're pregnant for 8 weeks, and a lot of times girls don't want to share that they've been abused that way.
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
I said, well, what happens if that happens to our daughter and we decide, you know, that termination is something we want to consider? And I was like, oh, never mind. We just drive to Illinois, right?
Just trying to.
We've got money. It's the people.
Yeah.
And I don't, when I say that, I don't mean like,
No,
we're
but
rich,
that is a
we've
good
got
point.
plenty of
That's
money to go to Illinois,
You know,
2 hours away.
it's so odd. One of the first things I thought about was Dirty Dancing. Do you remember Dirty Dancing and what
I
happened
remember
in this?
Baby in the corner. You don't put baby in the corner. I remember that.
Well, one of the, you know, his original partner, the older woman that was at she had got pregnant and she got, you know, fired or whatever. And then
Right.
she had the like backroom
Yes,
abortion.
okay. Yes.
That was,
of course. Of course.
yeah. And then, you know, her doctor, you know, her father doctor had to get involved. It was, you know, that stuff that, you know, I watched that. I watched Dirty Dancing as like, you know, like a set, you know, like a 9 or 10-year-old or whatever it was.
Right.
I remember actually being like mortified that I'm watching this movie with my parents in the room. But I also, it had an impact on me as far as, you know, you and I, part of what we decided to do was not talk about this because as men, our bodies are not controlled
At
all. Right. So why should we even address this?
Now we
But
will be
for
putting up
me-
a poll, hold on Facebook, of whether or not Tony should get his prostate exam done next week.
And then I have to. So, okay. So
I know.
see,
I know they're gonna make me get a colonoscopy later this month.
oh, I've already had one.
Oh, have you?
Yeah. Anyways, here's my thing is it's a woman's health issue.
It just is.
That's where I'm going to end it. That's all I want to say. You know, it's not going to help poor women at all.
Well, and I just, you know, I think there's a lot of fallout from this, one of which is that, you know, HIPAA, which is privacy, is gone for women if their rights are, if their abortion rights are restricted.
Right.
And again, I think about,
there was a woman who talked about being scared for having an app on her phone that tracked her periods.
yeah, and that sounds crazy.
It does.
Except then I read an article about some bureaucrat in Missouri who was trying to create a database of when all the women throughout the state were having their cycle.
Yes, and women have been prosecuted for having an illegal abortion, and their proof was the use of certain apps. I mean, these kind of stories, they don't get out. And I don't think enough people really think about these things and think about all the different nuances to they try to make it black and white. It's just pro-life or pro-choice, and that's it. And it's so much deeper than that.
Well, I don't know how to say anything about abortion other than abortion. The idea of it makes me very sad.
Yeah. Kind of all around. It's not like not like these women are going around saying, "Yay, I did this." There's a huge fallout from it.
It's hard when but you've seen the pictures of these medical, you know, where like they'll get together to make a women's health bill, and it'll be, you know, 75 white guys.
You know, it's funny.
And it's just troubling.
There's right before we started, I got on Facebook and I sent you the link, right, to Zoom.
Uh-huh.
And the first thing that popped up was this photo of Emma Watson speaking at the UN on feminism. So she's walking up and she's wearing a rather form-fitting dress, and there's this panel of like 6 white dudes, and they're like smiling at her face. And then as soon as she turns to the podium, and her posterior
let
is
me
pointing at them,
guess.
they're
Yes.
all looking down at her.
Yes, of
Like-
course.
Like, guys, come on.
Well,
Like,
and again, no one's pretending, don't look at a woman's behind. But I think
it's just
that
photo.
there's a thing with men where sometimes we're not smooth about it.
We're not. That's my whole
know?
point with these guys. It's like, come on, guys.
I mean, you can
all look at once. That's the first
that's
thing.
a good rule. You could do it in a, like each taking your turn, like you're on a.
Oh, well, that was in that
like a
one movie.
dance.
Yeah. That's funny. So switching a little bit again, just so I get it out there, because I wanted to kind of bring it up last week, just as it's something that I experienced. Okay. Just imagine this. Just imagine what happened. I don't know how it happened. I'm not I'm not way into IT stuff, but I know enough. So I'm in this, I'm messaging through Facebook Messenger to a friend of mine, right? And if I'm busy, I don't have time to sit there and type stuff out. Maybe I'm doing 2 things at once. So I'm sending an audio message via Messenger. So I send it, and we're in this messaging. We're messaging together. It's not like to be able to add more people to this particular chat. It's actually, you have to sit there and hit, different buttons. You have to find the person that you want to add to the chat. You add them, it's this whole process. I did none of that. It's just, if you look at our chat back and forth, it's just going on. I send the audio, she responds. I send some more messages, she responds. And then like an hour later, I have someone contact me and say, did you mean to send this to me? And I'm like, what? And I look, and it was the audio message that I had sent to that other person.
Ooh.
And then that same audio message went to 4 random people. It went to people that I have never messaged before.
Was it bad?
Not terrible.
Oh, that sounds bad though.
I was telling a story about a very bad person, yes.
Well,
that I mentioned their name, but they don't know them. Anyways, it was terrifying though. It was completely terrifying. It wasn't like the last 3 people I talked to and something happened. It was literally like such random people that I haven't spoken to in forever.
Well, so I don't know, maybe tell me if you think this is analogous, because sometimes I usually have my phone with me when I go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times I'll listen to something on YouTube to help me fall asleep or whatever. And like during the night, I kind of roll over a little bit.
Sure.
And more than once, I have woke up to discover that by rolling on my phone, I've turned on the do not disturb. I have. Well, I'm sorry.
This is not even close to that kind of scenario. No.
No. What I meant is that, like, do you think you could have accidentally done it?
No. Imagine it, Steve. Imagine. I mean, how would you have done it?
I don't know.
I have no idea. Because, okay, so this is what I was doing. So my phone, it's out. I how Messenger audio and Messenger works, right? You hold it down and then you can lock it into place. I set it down because I'm in my lab at work where I'm testing some samples, so I kind of have to use my hands. And so I'm talking and recording, doing some things, writing some notes, and as soon as as soon as I'm done, I just boom, hit send, and then she responds. It's just this normal, but I'm watching the screen. I'm watching it, and I'm doing a normal back and forth in this chat. I'm not like, it was so bizarre.
Okay.
It was extremely bizarre. I sent a bug report to Facebook that they've never gotten back to me, but it's like, holy, it's never happened before. But lesson learned a little bit.
Guess, yeah.
I mean, so kind of back to conspiracies, and if you're paranoid, or I mean, I know people who are not on Facebook because they're like scared of it or whatever, you know?
Well, my Kevin Lover, my mother does not have the internet,
Okay.
you know.
Does she wear like, aluminum foil hats
Oh.
and all that?
No, she has a phone and she can text with it.
Mm-hmm.
And she specifically doesn't have a smartphone because she doesn't want the government to be able to track her.
Yes.
I
That's what I'm
have
talking
not
about.
told her that they can still track her through that phone. Because I don't want her to lose it, because then we won't be able to text.
Oh, literally, the government has been tracking people way before technology like this ever existed.
Well, and there is the thing of like
specific targets was what I'm talking about.
whoa, absolutely. But like the stuff about the COVID vaccine having a microchip in it, and of course we're all sitting here being like, I have a phone where I literally transmit my location to everyone.
So what makes me so interesting that the government wants to know what I'm doing?
Well, again, the point is they already can.
Right.
They can take your cell phone. And
anyone who watched 24 knows that.
Right. Yeah.
How do you feel about that one dude that busted, what's his name?
Jared Fogle.
Huh?
No, go ahead. I'm kidding. Go ahead.
No. So he's the guy, he basically exposed the government's spying.
Edward Snowden.
And how do you feel about, is he a patriot or is he a traitor? What is he?
I think he's a hero.
I think he's a hero too.
That's not just libertarian. That gets into some other more extreme.
Here's the thing. Okay, again, these are extreme views, right? People might be surprised. We're gonna lose a bunch of membership now, but
I don't think so. I mean, what have we said?
Okay, so remember how upset and irate we were that Russia would ever think about tampering with our elections.
I do remember.
We've been tampering with other people's elections for freaking ever.
Well, here's the one that gets me, and it's very much in that same vein, where people are very upset about people from Latin America and South and Central America and Mexico coming to the United States and wanting to immigrate.
Did you see
hold on, we spent the last 70 years destabilizing their currency, killing their government officials. I mean, doing these things. We did that.
Yeah.
And like, maybe we should send them some cash or something. I mean, seriously, if we want them to stop immigrating, then maybe we should stop destroying their country.
Here's another very unpopular opinion, Tony. Let's just invade all the way down to Panama, and let's just bring them all in. We'll just stop them right there at the Panama Canal. That's easy, and then we can just stabilize that whole area.
I don't want to stabilize Mexico's problems.
If we turn them into Hawaii.
I don't know. The cartels. No, I'm
kidding. That's actually really horrible of me to say, because the native Hawaiians, they have suffered ever since our.
Yes, that was very insensitive of you. But the cartels in Mexico terrify me.
I love Narcos. The whole series of Narcos. Mm-hmm. Have you watched it?
Well, I don't really watch television, as we've talked about.
Have you read the books on it?
I am familiar with the storyline.
So people might not understand this, but it's simply with me. If someone does something or is doing something that I can't fathom, I can't wrap my mind around it, I am just completely intrigued by it. So I listen to like serial killer podcasts. Why?
Like proper hygiene.
Yes. At least you got to dig in finally. I mean,
finally.
Yeah. So I can't imagine taking life. I can at least imagine crimes of passion. Those aren't really that hard to understand, right? You come home, right. Your wife's cheating, you pull out your gun, you kill them both. That's of course.
Right, we get that.
But then someone who's just going out and murdering every single straight-haired brunette that they find, that's just like, what?
Well, that's why I have no problem with guns at all. At all.
Really?
Oh no, I think guns are fine. Have all the guns you want.
That's a completely different subject, but yeah.
But no, what I was going to say is, but the reason why I would never have a gun for self-defense is because I know that the result would be they would take the gun, pistol me, whip me with it, and shoot me. Because I don't think I could kill another person. I just don't think I have it in me. But if other people want to have their guns to defend themselves, or that's cool. And I would have a gun to hunt or to target practice.
Have you experienced fight or flight yet in your life?
Well, of course.
Well, I'm not talking about psychologically, because that happens too. I'm talking about like where someone attempted to punch me once. They're grappling with me and they cocked back, and before, like, it literally, my body went into autopilot and I went bam, bam, like faster. I mean, just knocked the guy out.
And have you ever? Pagan never talked back again, did she?
It's a long story, but it shocked me, and I can only say that was fight or flight.
So I've had that happen a couple times, but different in that one time I was out with a friend and we were jogging, and his dad hired two guys to jump out of an alley. No, I'm serious, while we were jogging, and they beat the snot out of that kid. And in that moment, he was. Is this like
Arrested Development, Dad, or something?
I ran up to him and I just got in front of him. I said, "You guys just need to back off." And
after they were pummeled, did the guy say, "And that's why you leave a note"?
No, I didn't fight the guys. I just stepped in and I picked the kid up and threw him over my shoulder and I ran. That's why it has to be adrenaline, right? I ran back home.
Right.
And then one time my brother was it was before school, and some guy I was actually friends with, he was in my grade, and my brother started kind of pushing each other, and I stepped in between them and I hugged the other guy and I just said, "Hey, we don't have to do this. It's okay." So that was, I think, kind of that fight or flight, but I don't have an instinct to fight.
It doesn't come natural for me either. I don't want to do it, but I was just surprised in that moment. It was just purely self-defense, and it was like I said, autopilot. The only other time is that I had just moved into a new house, and Sarah and I had heard something, where I fully believed that someone was breaking into the house.
Sure.
And the reason I fully believed it was because literally, like, our first night, and I figured some meth head thought that the house was still like for sale, like no one lived there, right? Oh, and we hadn't even really moved a lot of stuff in yet, so it was probably even looked. And I had a gun, locked it, took the safety off, loaded it, safety off, and I was shockingly, I was surprised. I was ready to use it.
Well, and maybe if your family, you feel like your family's at risk.
Oh yeah, 100%.
That's different. And like I said, I don't have any problem with somebody on their property, defending themselves. I think that there are times when that might be used as a defense when it's probably not legit, but again, that becomes minutia, and I'm not really talking about that. All right.
But yeah, interesting. I haven't kept track of the time, but I think we're just about done.
I think we're done.
I mean, I'm sick of you, so that's kind of the,
Well, you keep saying, I don't know that we shared a lot of really crazy opinions.
Because I've still filtered myself.
Well, I mean, that's fine. I mean, I'm filtering myself too. I don't, although, I mean, the way that I'm filtering myself is more like, I don't want to create contention over something, as opposed to I'm afraid to let people know what I'm thinking.
I think that what I've noticed with people who are intellectual, I'll say intellectual, and have open minds and can think and see both sides, they're going to appreciate, they usually appreciate people who have opinions.
Oh, that's certainly true.
So if someone can't get there with us and have this, the problem is it's just you and I. It'd be great to continue. We've talked about having these subjects come up again, but with guests and
We
you
really,
know,
I mean, if this had been a true boys' night, there would have been 6 of us there,
oh yeah.
and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
we would have gotten the full spectrum on every issue.
Oh, sure. Imagine the people sitting around us at Applebee's listening to us.
Yeah, they
They
probably
probably were enlightened.
Oh, you think so? 'Cause I was gonna say they probably hated us.
Probably hated us, right?
All
How
right,
dare
Tony.
those white men have opinions?
Well, I don't even think it's about that. I just think like if you're at dinner and two guys are talking about abortion, you don't want to hear that. You don't care who they are.
Well, it's always good, man. So to recap, do you want to recap everything?
Okay, well, here's the most important things, and this is what we'll put
What
up
have
in
we
our
learned today?
description. You know, I mean, the issue with the church and the sex abuse is really troubling.
It's troubling.
And I think that it's fair to say that the church is kind of their own worst enemy in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
We both are experiencing some pretty severe schadenfreude over Alex Jones.
Yes.
Are you familiar with that? You are, right? You know what that is.
Yes.
Okay. So some pretty awesome schadenfreude. I heard the term Schadenfreudengasm or something like that. I wish I remember exactly what the guy said. Then we started getting some more miscellaneous issues and just I don't remember everything we talked about. Hopefully we didn't say anything.
I mean, I want to be a South American drug lord. That's really what we've learned from all of this.
Yeah. I do know they all have a wife.
I just want to say, I want to say one more thing before we end is that part of the news, and I laughed. I unfortunately laughed out loud because I thought it was hilarious. Somebody in Texas, I don't know if it was Governor of Texas, whoever it was, decided to send like busloads and busloads of illegal immigrants to Washington, D.C. Did you see that news story?
No, to what end?
Just dropped them off.
That is
you deal
that
with
is
them,
funny.
Washington, D.C. does not deal with it like Texas does.
Well, in Washington, D.C., I mean, I don't know that they're really set up for this big influx of people.
They were not. They had no idea what to do.
Yeah, they don't have farms to pick. I mean, I'm not trying to be racist. I'm saying like that's what they do in Texas, right? In California, these places, they have these menial jobs that they do, and that's kind of how they get in.
That was extremely racist what you said.
That was not racist. All right. Well, on that end, you guess.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody. Hopefully you enjoyed it. We will get this out right away. We have a couple other podcasts that we're sitting on that will get released. I think you guys will enjoy them.
Our best 2 podcasts that we've done are going to be the next 2 that are released.
Oh, I think so. I agree.
Yeah, I think so.
You know, so what I'd like to move away from, and we've kind of talked about this a little bit, is not to do all these like big introductions and like take all this time to introduce people, but we have a list of interesting people. They do have stories, but eventually maybe as we introduce some of these people, like what will happen soon, they'll keep coming back like as guests,
and because it's one thing to tell a little bit about your story, but these people are each in their own way. They're experts in different areas.
That's what we want.
And that's, because I mean, honestly, if you look at and I'm not a huge Joe Rogan fan, but if you look at what Joe Rogan does, he brings people on and he lets them talk about what they're experts at.
It's so intriguing. And the fact that what I love about Joe is he can keep up with them all. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So anyways,
we're done.
We're done. Please like, subscribe, comment, and do whatever you need to do on his side. Huh?
No one is left.
Whatever. All right.
All right. Take care.
See ya. Bye.